No, absolutely not. And that has led to the Jets obviously getting off to a disappointing start, not living up to expectations. But, I mean, Pete, would you say that they're the most disappointing team in terms of the start they've had?
No. The most disappointing team is the Cincinnati Bengals because I picked them to win the division. I mean, I thought they would be the best team. I thought they would light up the scoreboard. I thought Joe Burrow would do what he's doing right now, which is playing out of his mind. I didn't think the defense would be this bad. The defense is awful. They can't stop anybody. I mean, even when they played Carolina a couple weeks ago, Andy Dalton went up and down the field on them. So I think they're the biggest disappointment because I thought they would win the division.
I was going to go with the Bengals, and then I went with my pick to win the AFC East, and it was the Miami Dolphins. And granted, this is due to injury and the injury to Tua Tagovailoa, but then you saw Skylar Thompson go down, and really what you've seen is Mike McDaniel's inability to win without Tua. And then it becomes a question mark of, is he the right guy for the job? Because you do have to be able to adapt and develop other players at that position. And the fact there was such a drop-off, and there's continued to be one, has me concerned. And then when you look at the schedule, the first 9 or 10 games were where the Dolphins were supposed to make their hay, where the back end it gets really tough. So even if Tua comes back, which is a massive question mark right now, it just looked this was a wasted season for the Dolphins when so many people, including players in that locker room, said this is when the playoff drought ends. To come up short, I think it's a devastating loss.
Soft. They're soft.
Yeah,
they are. They're soft.
No doubt about it.
So those are the disappointing teams in your opinion, the Dolphins and the Bengals. What about surprising teams, Pete? Who's the most surprising team for you 5 weeks into the season?
It's the Commanders. I mean, look, I thought he was my number one quarterback. I love Jay Daniels. I think he's going to be a star on his way to being one of the best in this league. But I didn't think he would cure their ills this fast. And I give a lot of credit to him, but I also give a lot of credit to Cliff Kingsbury. And he's made it so easy on the kid. You know, a lot of RPOs, and he feasts in it, and he does a great job of pulling it and running and making the throws when he has to. And he's a lot tougher than he was given credit for coming out. You know, everybody talked about the great situation Caleb Williams had when he went to the Bears and how bad it was for him in Washington. Well, the great quarterbacks cure your ills. The offensive line, which was a major concern, is not a concern as much as it was before. The wide receiver group, the De'Ami Brown's starting to make plays. Not a concern anymore. They're running the football. And I think that's what you're seeing. So the Commanders, to me, are by far and away the biggest surprise.
I have one I think is more surprising because I think Jaden Daniels has been awesome and he's been great. But we saw C.J. Stroud, what he did for the Texans last year. I'm going to go with a team that had a quarterback everyone had discarded, had multiple opportunities. It's the Minnesota Vikings, and the job that Kevin O'Connell has done with Sam Darnold, getting him up to a conversation where we never thought, and who knows, it's a long way to go, but he was actually in the MVP conversation, and you're thinking, yeah, that's not too crazy to think if he keeps it up at this pace that he could actually be somebody at the end that could be standing there in a division which nobody thought they could be competitive in. For them to be sitting there and undefeated, I think the Minnesota Vikings are the biggest surprise this season.
Did it worry you at all that we started to see a little Sam Darnold be Sam Darnold?
A little bit, but for both of these teams, I think it'll be interesting because for the Washington Commanders, teams are starting to get more film on Jaden Daniels, and they're starting to get more film on Sam Darnold. So usually you see that regression a little bit back.
Yeah, but what do they always say about quarterbacks?
Pete is the you are who you are police. That is who you are.
Usually you can stay underneath the surface for a while, but usually what you are bubbles to the top.
It does.
Usually we say that about backup quarterbacks, not guys that are starting in the NFL through 5 weeks.
He's been a
backup, but right now
I love the
not
story.
playing like it. Let's talk about the most impressive team to this point. You guys are both in agreement here, Danny. It is the Chiefs, who are undefeated and somehow, despite all the injuries, just keep finding ways to win. It's
remarkable, and I think we should just sit back and enjoy watching Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid do what they do. And for a team that's trying to, make history, and they're going for the third straight. There was an easy temptation to come in and start slow, which is something they've done before in the past. And there's been the off-season of celebrity and seeing Patrick Mahomes and his wife travel the world with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. There's an opportunity for a letdown there, but they have not one bit. And for them to go out and dominate the way they have and to not have that drop-off, Pete, I almost feel like behind closed doors, they are seeing the opportunity to make history and do something that nobody's done before, and taking that on as a personal challenge, and even potentially to give that run of an undefeated season. They do feel like they are taking this that seriously. Plus the additions, Xavier Worthy's opened up that offense. They've gotten that big play capability, which they were kind of looking for and lacking the past couple seasons. Even still, when they're adding Super Bowls to their resume, it has been the most impressive story and the most impressive team in the NFL.
And I echo those same sentiments. And, you know, because everybody sits there and says, well, you know, Leger said that Patrick Mahomes was a game manager. He's far from a game manager. But the thing about this team that keeps it moving forward is him, but Andy Reid. And Andy Reid knows how to scheme an offense. I mean, we went into last night's game. You sit there and you say, no Rice, what are they going to do? They did exactly what I thought they would do. They would use a bunch of tight end looks, and they had 3 and 4 tight ends on the field at the same time. They would get Worthy in space and get him the football, because that's what Andy Reid does. He's one of the all-time great coaches. If this team goes through, let's say they win it again, and they don't lose, is he in the conversation for the greatest coach of all time? Absolutely. And you know what? If he coaches to 70, he might have the record for most wins all time. The guy's a great coach. If you have the coach, you have the quarterback, and you have a defensive coordinator who's aggressive like Steve Spagnuolo, no matter what you have on the outside throwing to, you're going to be a good team.
But is this one of those situations like we had with Brady and Belichick, where that meshing between the head coach and the quarterback is just next level? Because Mahomes last night was also too. I mean, they pointed it out on the broadcast about the reads he was making and how he was able to kind of check things at the line of scrimmage. It just seems like that relationship between those two is very comparable to what Brady and Belichick had.
It's phenomenal, and I don't think it's as there's not as much friction as there was with Brady and Belichick, because they do get along. And again, Andy Reid's been a great coach in this league for a long, long time. He's been a great offensive mind for a long, long time. Back in the day, they used to criticize Andy Reid because he didn't run the ball enough. Well, you see what they do now. They run the football. He's a smart guy. He's figured it out. He understands he has a great quarterback. He understands he has an all-time great tight end. And he has a bunch of guys, other tight ends, that can catch the football. They scheme it open. They're great at it. But Steve Spagnuolo doesn't get enough due on the other side of the ball. That defense is playing great football.
Also, I don't know if Andy Reid gets enough credit for what he did in Philly. I mean, that was impressive, what he did with Donovan McNabb and taking that team to a Super Bowl. If he even gets close to Bill Belichick's number, I think you have to consider that as an addition to his resume as well.
All right, Chiefs get the bye, and then we get a Super Bowl rematch with the Niners following that. Pete, Danny, we certainly appreciate it.